Ding. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to our evening Q&A session with Dharma Master Heng Lai. This is part 2. For those who joined part 1, I believe you can find it on the CTTP Live YouTube channel. So I would like to begin. Lai Fa Shi, could we pay our respects?
One bow.
We had some problem with the YouTube. It's not connecting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully people can join via Zoom then, if the YouTube doesn't work. Well, I'll continue, and if I can help it in any way, let me know. And so I'll just give a very short introduction to Dharma Master Lai. You can watch the other video for the longer introduction. So Lai Fa Shi left home in 1976 or became a Bhiksu in 1976. So he's been a monk now for almost 45 years, and is currently staying at Snow Mountain Monastery up in Index, Washington. I believe the manager there, and does many retreats, and later maybe he could share some of the retreats that they're doing if people want to join. And I thought this time just to share a couple of photos of Dharma Master Lai when he was younger. I got sent these images, and I thought they were quite striking, so I wanted to share with people here. You see that? That's Lai Fa Shi as a layman. I don't know, how old were you, Lai Fa Shi, then?
Oh, I don't know, probably 23 or so.
23. And then this is Old Gold Mountain out we're having lunch.
That was before the renovation.
Here we go. Here's another picture of Lai Fa Shi standing in lecture. I believe you told me fast you stood because you didn't want to fall asleep.
Is it Reverend Heng Shi here?
No, that's
No,
like
I was
Jing Gong Shi.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Great cast. Jing Gong Shi. And then there's another photo here. I won't do too many more, but this one is Dharma Master Lai as well. I think when you were younger. Oh, how come I can't zoom in? Oh, there we go. There we go. There's Lai Fa Shi meditating. Was Bhiksu Heng Yo, right?
Yes.
Heng Yo. Yeah. So, and then just the Guanyin images. So if we want at the end, we can share some of the more photos, but I think today was going to work on the Q&A. So I don't know if you want to share anything before we start, Lai Fa Shi.
I don't know what you mean, but if somebody has a question, they can ask the question.
Okay, just grab it here. Well, the first question is regarding bowing. And since it's right now the beginning of the 16,000 Buddhas, 10,000 Buddhas repentance, wondering if you have any experience bowing, any instructions on bowing, on the process of repentance and how to repent properly and not end up kind of just criticizing ourselves or beating ourselves up. That's the first question.
Okay. Well, when I first started living in Gold Mountain, I didn't like bowing. I didn't like doing ceremonies. I'm a Westerner. I just like doing Chan. But Shifu quickly dissuaded me of that particular attachment. He showed me that all these cultivations are just Chan. And Chan is just all these cultivations. They're not any different than each other. They all work with each other. They're not opposed to each other. It's not like, oh, I do this only. I wanted to only do Chan. She says, no, you should do all 5 schools. You should do the Pure Land school, the teaching school, the precept school, even the secret school. So it took me a while to understand that. But when it comes to bowing, Shifu always used to tell us, you want to bow to, obviously you want to repent of your affliction, of all the mistakes we've made in the past, even if we can't remember them, which is really sounds pretty ludicrous to somebody who's new to Buddhism. But in Buddhism, we repent for stuff we've done in the past we can't even remember. And even when we take refuge to become disciples of the Buddha, one of the big parts of that ceremony is repentance. Is to say that in the past I've killed my mother and father, I've shed the Buddha's blood, I've done all kinds of horrific things. Even though I don't remember these, I still repent of them. And the reason for that is to kind of clean the slate, say, look, we're not innocent, none of us. And that we should realize that and change. But in Buddhism, unlike other traditions and other religions and stuff, we don't indulge in feeling guilty. That's unhealthy. Buddhism teaches us to learn shame. You should have some shame for what we've done, but we need to change. The big thing is we need to turn the corner. We need to say, okay, we really messed up in the past. We made all kinds of stupid mistakes, but now I'm gonna straighten. I'm gonna start doing right things. I'm gonna change my ways, my evil ways. I'm gonna change my evil ways. And we're going to really turn the corner and go towards the light and turn away from the darkness. That's basically what it's all about. It's getting everybody to get rid of this stuff, this bad poison that's in us, and go towards the light, because that's where our true Buddha natures are.
Okay. This question is a little bit kind of, I'm not say tangential, but in a different field. This comes from one of the DRBU students, and he asks, I heard originally that the main DRBA headquarters was supposed to be Buddha Root Farm in Oregon before the master found the state hospital in Ukiah. But his question is actually, he also heard that Calgary in Canada was going to be a major Buddhist center. So what's the role of Calgary in the future?
The master, we set up over the many years, we've set up places, cultivation monasteries and temples, just about everywhere. I've got them in Los Angeles, we got them in San Francisco, now of course in Ukiah, and further north we have Seattle, and we have Vancouver, and we have Calgary. So all these places are very special. And it's for the people who live there, obviously. It's not like, oh, we're going to start a new center up in Calgary and everybody should abandon Wampachung and run up to Calgary. That's not the idea at all. It's to help everybody who's there, who are cultivators, who are Canadians, who have a chance to meet the Dharma. And it's like every time we create a new place, like in Maryland, we have Avatamsaka Vihara there. And it's for the people who live in Maryland.
Okay. The next question is from China. And they say that they practice the Shirangama mantra and meditate daily. And then when they meditate, they also recite the Shirangama mantra. They recite many times throughout the day, but they don't recite the Buddha's name. So they've been reciting the Shirangama mantra for a long time, but they're wondering, how does it compare to reciting the Buddha's name if they want to be reborn in the Pure Land? Which way is easier? Furthermore, when dying, the Buddha's name is only 6 words, but the Shirangama has more than 2,000 words. What should I do? I appreciate Dharma Master Lai's reply.
Well, like I said before, when I used to not like to do any of that stuff, but now I've learned over the years to accept it all. So I practice it all. All of it is good to me. It's all like a wonderful thing. So if I'm doing the Shirangama, that's a wonderful thing to recite. If I'm reciting Amitabha's name, that's also wonderful. The master used to teach us, if you're really cultivating recitation, if you're really doing it right, then your mind has nothing in it but what you're reciting. Literally, you're an empty vessel. You've emptied your brain. Everything in it is just like if you're reciting Amitabha, then that fills up your whole being, Amitabha Buddha. And then you're really getting somewhere. Same with the Shirangama. If If you're reciting the Shirangama, all the syllables you're reciting just fill up empty space, and there's no other false thought going on. You're starting to get accomplishment. So in that regards, that's why that's what I've learned, that I'm not attached to one or the other. I like reciting Guan Yin's name. I like reciting Amitabha's name. I like reciting the Shirangama. All of that is excellent. It's like a symphony, like a bunch of, like a big orchestra, and all the different instruments have their own flavor, but altogether it's quite beautiful to listen to.
Great. Next one is also from China. It says, Dharma Master, I heard Master Hua mention that in the 90s that a wheel-turning sage king was born in China, and also mentioned that Buddhism would flourish again in China. Have you heard Master Hua say this? Do you know when Master Hua predicted this would happen?
I have to tell you, I'm not a big person. I'm not a big fan of predictions, because I've always noticed when the master is talking about things in the future and the past, he's doing it expediently for the people who are there, because they have some sort of obstruction, or he needs to get them to do some other kind of activity or something to help their cultivation. So when we talk about predictions, I take it all with a grain of salt, because I don't, first of all, I have no wisdom myself. So how am I going to be able to tell what's going to happen in China? We've heard all kinds of predictions over the years, and Shifu's always used them according to conditions at the time and the audience that he's talking to. So you have to kind of be careful not to take everything as absolute cement truth when it comes to this. Shifu was always just like the Buddha. He spoke expediently for the audience that he was talking to.
I have is, when we attach to things, everything is wrong. But when we attach to doing nothing, we fall into adult emptiness. How should we cultivate?
Well, if you're not attached to anything, you wouldn't be in adult emptiness. Yeah, I tell you that. If you're able to really not be attached to something, then you would really start achieving some light, because everything we do is attachments in this body. Ever since our birth, we're grasping at everything that shines. So to say that if you're not attached to anything, you're in dull, it's not, to me, that's just nonsense. If it's just really wonderful, the state of not being attached. I don't mean not caring. Don't get confused. I'm not talking about not caring about anybody. We're talking about not being attached. It's quite a bit different.
Could you explain the difference there between not caring and not being attached? Because I think it's very easy to think, I don't get attached, I just don't pay attention to you.
Yeah, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not attached because I don't care about you. That's not being unattached. That's just being obnoxious. It's just having a big self. Real unattachment is, I mean, look at the Venerable Master Shulao, the empty cloud, who bowed all the way across China. And even though he did that, he cultivated, took him years to do that. He almost lost his life several times. And then he finally got to the place, and what did he do? He burned his finger off. Why did he do such a crazy thing? Because he realized he's still very much attached to his mother. And the only way he can truly help his mother is to break that attachment. It's sort of very profound in all of us. We have a profound attachment to our mothers because they gave us birth. And so he realized he had to break that attachment in order to truly help her to cross over to become a Buddha. And the only way he could do that is break his attachment to her. And that was symbolic of that when he did that. And so that's what I mean by unattachment. Compared to, oh, I don't care. I'm not attached to you. I don't like you, so I'm not attached to you. That's not the same thing at all. It's the opposite. Being unattached means then you can have real ability to help others. You start to wake up yourself. In Buddhism, what is a bodhisattva? A bodhisattva is one who attains true wisdom and becomes free of attachments so that they can then teach others, can save others. It's kind of like the airplane analogy. When you are up high in the sky and the plane window blows out, all the oxygen masks fall from the ceiling. They instruct you first put the mask on your mouth and then put it on your child's mouth. Put the mask on the child, because if you don't, you're going to become unconscious and won't be able to help the child. It's the same principle in Buddhism. In order for you to help others, you first have to get enlightened yourself.
Okay, great. I have a question from online. It's from Alan and Terry. It says, what is the importance of vigor in cultivation, and how do we approach this in practice?
Yeah, vigor. Yeah, it can be tough sometimes to always be vigorous. It's easy to say, oh, we must all be vigorous. Not so easy to practice. So you just start creating good habits. It's the best way to bring around your vigorous. You get up early in the morning, make a practice of doing certain things at certain times, and stay on track. And the biggest thing is when we truly start getting towards our true natures, vigor will manifest itself and kind of take over in a sense at that point. But before that happens, we ourselves have to kind of kick the rock to get it rolling down the hill, so to speak. So we have to create good habits that would help us be vigorous. At least that's in my case, I had to do that.
I have a question here from the US. The question is, there is a widespread notion that monastics are often accused of leaving home to quote unquote escape from society, in addition to being called quote unquote parasites of society. What responses and principles can we respond with when the time is appropriate to do so?
Yeah, that's the usual thing that people say, oh, you just want to be a parasite. And so to me, it's like we're not, we work all the time. All the left home people work pretty hard. And we're not afraid of work. It's not, but in order to really cultivate, you can't be running around in the world being constantly turned by this and that, especially in this day and age, because everything around us constantly turns us, grabs our eyes, grabs our ears, grabs our smells, everything. It's just constant. So you need a place where you can simmer down a little bit and focus and cultivate. That doesn't mean you want to just have other people take care of you all the time. All of our left home people, both the Bhiksu and Bhiksunis, work very hard. They work very hard to exhaustion sometimes. So they're not afraid of work. And we're not trying to get by without getting a job. It's just that we don't want to be sitting in the world being constantly bombarded by all the nonsense that's going on in the world. We want to be able to really focus on waking up and becoming Buddhas.
So this question is from China. It's from a woman. She said, is it considered as a good woman if we only read or recite the Dharma Flower Sutra? What is the difference mentioned in the Earth Store Sutra as being a good woman? As I understand it, we must uphold the 5 precepts and do the 10 good deeds so as to become good women. Could you please explain how to be a good woman?
I don't know, I'm not a woman. I'm not this life anyway. But it's not just a woman, it's a man. It's a good human, how to become a good human. And obviously, the Buddha did something very simple. He set forward the Eightfold Path to becoming a Buddha. I mean, when he woke up under the Bodhi tree, he realized that all sentient beings, not just humans, but all sentient beings have this nature, have this incredible Buddha nature. That was a profound thing. And he set up a way to do it. He says, here's how you do. You practice these things and that thing. So he spoke these sutras, we call sutras, but actually they were lectures. The Buddha spoke lectures and people memorized them in those days. They didn't write them down. They actually had teams of people who would memorize the sutra as it was being spoke. And they would check each other at the end of the lecture to make sure they got it all right. Pretty incredible. But as far as the Lotus and you say the Shirangama and all the others, all of them interplay with one another. They all have their ways of for us to cultivate. And there's just different flavors of the same thing. And he's trying to get us to first be able to, what is the fundamentals of Buddhism? Precepts, Samadhi, wisdom, right? The three principles. The first is precepts. That's the hard part. Nobody wants to just follow the rules all the time. It's boring. But that's where you build your foundation. If you don't have a foundation, you won't be able to stay. When you open up your mind will close back down again. You have to have a good, solid precept foundation. And I believe that's the question. How do you become a good person? That's fundamentally the precept school you're asking about. How do I follow the precepts? You just do it. You know, you practice precepts, samadhi, and then you practice samadhi, and you get wisdom. That's how it works. And because without the basis of precepts themselves, you have no foundation. Your house will fall down. Even if you did Kai Wu, you woke up, it would only be a very short period and close back down like a clam because you don't have any foundation built yet. So it's important to do that.
There's another question here from Ohio.
No more sutra technical questions.
No more sutra technical. Okay, this one's not well, we'll see if you consider a sutra technical question. He asks, why is the Dharma realm the way it is? Is it because of our mind? Or is this question just false thinking? If this question is answered in the sutras, where can I look for it?
I don't even know the question.
Why is the Dharma realm the way it is?
Is he speaking about the Buddha Dharma realm, or is he just talking about the regular mind that we have, our everyday mind? Is he asking that question?
Maybe you can answer both. What's the difference between the Dharma realm of the ordinary mind and the Dharma realm of the Buddha?
Well, basically, we all are under this cloud all the time. We have our constant thought. Shakespeare best said it. He says, we live in this, he said that, what was the word? Under this pale cast of thought. We live under a pale cast of thought. And it's probably the best description I can ever think of to describe the state we're all in. It's called the sixth consciousness. This is called our worldly consciousness. We're all stuck in it. It's a dualistic world we have. We think that there's white, we think there's black, we think there's up, we think there's down. In fact, all of it's just relative. It's not true. And real Dharma realm is when you break through that pale cast of thought, when you can able to stop that pale cast of thought and see your true nature as it really is. You don't have to have anybody explain it to you. You will know at gut level. You don't have to. That's the way it is. Read Shu Lao's poem when he Kai Wu'd, when he woke up, and you can see the joy in it. It's total joy of being able to break through that pale cast of thought. So I guess that's what his question is about, I think, but I'm not sure.
No problem. Next question I have is maybe a little bit more personal. It says Master Hua said that just getting a divorce has serious retribution to it. And then they were wondering, after we learn the Dharma and begin to cultivate, will we still have to receive the retribution from a divorce?
Okay, yeah, we have to receive the retribution for everything we do, good and bad. So yes, Shifu used to describe divorce as taking a knife and cutting yourself in half. He really did not allow his disciples to get divorced. He says the only time he allowed that, and even then he didn't call it a divorce. He says, if you both want to leave home, that would be okay. But otherwise, Stay together and don't be so selfish. The only reason you want to get divorced is because you're being selfish. That's what he says. And don't talk to Shifu about love either. He says, you don't understand what love is. Love is Guan Yin. That's true love. Guan Yin truly loves all sentient beings. That's what real love is. I had a nun tell me that once, a Christian nun when I was little. It always stuck with me my whole life. She said, all you young kids think that love is just kissing and making and having a close relationship. She says, no, real love is sacrifice, is giving. She had some wisdom. She had some real wisdom. She says, real love is giving. That's pure love. So you were talking about divorce. Yeah, of course, Shifu never, our teacher never approved of a divorce. And especially since we're on the subject of all these things, all these retributions, he says one of the big problems with this U.S. country, the USA, is that it has some very heavy karmic things it has to get through. One is slavery. It had hundreds of years of slavery. Also, it eliminated most of the native peoples here on this continent by disease and other things when the Europeans came here back in the 1600s or whatever it was. And all that karma is collective karma, and it will have to be repaid. And also now we have the new modern era, we have abortion. And abortion is horrific because that's a form of killing. And the first thing the Buddha said, the first precept, what is the first precept? No killing of any kind. So it's a very important precept, because if you want to get away from this world of suffering, the first thing you have to do, number one on the list, stop killing things. And start having compassion towards not only humans, but all living things.
Okay, here's a question from online. She says, we here in China don't have the opportunity to have Life Washer come and speak the sutras. We're wondering, would you be able to speak the sutras so we can learn from you? Amitofo.
First of all, I can't speak the sutras. I'm too stupid. You need to get somebody who's really has some wisdom. Heng Sure can do that. He's very good at speaking. Shifu taught him how to properly lecture the sutras. Heng Lu also knows. We have many monks and our Bhikshunis, Heng Sure, Heng Yang, they all understand how to lecture sutras. And those are the people you want to listen to. They know how to properly lecture them. Me, I'm a potato head. You don't want to have me do it. The master always told me, this is not your jingje. This is not your thing. He says, you shouldn't be lecturing sutras.
Okay, another question I got here is, what is better, cultivating one method or multiple methods?
Well, everybody gets hung up on technique. Oh, should I say this mantra? Should I do this? Should I do that? And Shifu used to laugh at us when we had all that kind of thought. I said, oh, should I practice this? He says, you people aren't even close to being ready to worry about those kind of things. He says, just do all of it. There'll be a time later on when you start to get some real skill, we can talk about what your best cultivation is. Otherwise, he just said, you're like little tiny infant children. You're not even ready, even close to being ready to worry about what kind of techniques you should use.
That's pretty good. Another question I have here is, I still eat meat and cannot be vegetarian. Can I still recite the Shirangama mantra?
Well, sure, you can recite it. It's like saying, I'm taking a knife out and stabbing a bunch of people, but I'll recite when I do it. Is that okay? I said, no, it's not. It's not going to do much good. If you want to let go of meat, you have to let go of meat. I'm not so innocent. I used to eat meat before I left home. And then I fasted one time with the master helping me. And about 10 days in my fast, I started having these really vivid dreams of blood red steak. I wanted to have a nice big steak. And I told Shifu that this is coming up now. He says, yes, because you've eaten meat so many years, this is starting to go out of your consciousness now. now that you're fasting, this is a good way of getting rid of it. Because all this meat desire is just bubbling up and going out. I said, oh, he says, just let it come and and don't be attached. I said, okay. And it stopped after a couple more days and it never came back.
So one person is asking more about repentance. She's saying, in the past, I heard you talk about repentance and renewal. And it's interesting to say she's heard you talk about it before, but she can't quite remember now. And she was wondering if you could speak about it again.
I just talked about it.
Yeah.
We just talked about that before.
Okay, I don't know if Sandy, your question, I tried to translate it into English, but I don't know if I got it quite right. Here's one. Life Asher, I have a question on interest in life, for instance, the arts. Are they mere distractions from the path of cultivation, or can they contribute to our cultivation? Amitofo.
Well, I always thought it's interesting because a lot of our people who live home have a lot of really good skills in a lot of different areas. Some people are very skillful artists. Other people are very skillful lawyers. You never know. And everybody thought, well, once I leave home or become a Buddhist, I have to let all that go and not. And Shifu said, oh, no. You can use those skills. Those skills are very useful. He always encouraged people to keep those skill sets and not be so, don't be attached to them, but you can use them to help benefit living beings and to help with cultivation. You can use it as expedient teaching devices for people. So Shifu always encouraged people to keep their skills. And not only that, he encouraged our left home people to get their PhD degrees in school, even though they've left home. He says the outside world, this Western world, they only respect people with PhDs. In the old days, they just used to respect religious people. Nowadays, they don't respect religious people at all. They only respect PhDs. He said everybody should get a PhD.
And this question is a little bit more technical. It says, I would like to know if there's a link between cause and effect and the saying, everything arises from the mind. Whatever that we see, hear, or think is a result of the alaya or eighth consciousness manifesting itself. If that is how it works, then how do you link this to cause and effect? I think basically is how does cause and effect work and connected to this idea that everything arises from the mind?
Well, cause and effect is the study of physics. If you want to know, I mean, from our Western perspective, in this day and age, in this is what is this 2021? What is the most respected science? Probably theoretical physics, right?
Yeah, probably physics.
Yeah, it's the study of cause and effect. Basically, that's what physics is. And so, yeah, it's simply when what goes up must come down. I mean, that kind of thing. Everything has causal relationships. Everything we do, everything we think, everything we breathe has cause and effect involved with it. The whole universe is cause and effect. It's just this one big, gigantic cause and effect factory. And we all part of it. And when we say everything's made, in the Western, I always get confused when they say the word mind in Buddhist terms, because I believe that what they're really saying is everything's made from your consciousness alone or your perception alone. Because when we think about a Western idea of mind means our human brain. But in Buddhism, it goes far beyond that. It's your perception, the very essence of your perception. And at the very core of that is true. There is your Buddha nature, your eighth consciousness, as we call it technically. But in reality, it's just your Buddha nature, trying to get through all your pale cast of thought.
Okay. Next question I have says, how do we know when we are making progress in our practice? It seems we're often in a state of, Chinese phrases, 修道一年佛在眼前，修道3年18000，修道10年 佛在天边, which means when you first start to cultivate for that first year, the Buddha's right in front of you. When you cultivate 3 years, then the Buddha's 10,000, 108,000 miles away. And when you cultivate 10 years, the Buddha's kind of disappeared over the horizon. You don't see him anymore. And when we're doing our daily practice, but we still don't seem to be getting anywhere in our spiritual growth, would Dharma Master Lai please advise? Amitofo.
Well, I don't look at spiritual as a growth. I mean, we're all basically Buddhas. You have to remember that. Our Buddha nature is just sitting there waiting for us to wake up to it. So there's nothing to grow about. What are you growing? Are you growing a fruit tree on your head? I mean, what are you talking about growing? To me, it's waking up to it. And yes, there's times when you think, God, I'm really far away from my Buddha nature. But actually, your Buddha nature is right next door. It always is. It's right on your shoulder. It's sitting right there, pounding on you to wake up. That's what Buddhas and Bodhisattvas do. That's what's so frustrating for the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas. They can't force you to wake up. If they could force us to wake up, they would do it in a microsecond. But they can't. They have to wait for you to wake yourself up. So yeah, that's where you start learning how to be patient. And then you will know when you're really starting to get warm. You'll know intuitively. You don't have to have somebody tell you. You'll say, I'm getting to that point where I need to wake up. I know that. You'll know it. Everybody does. Everybody has their own intrinsic Buddha natures, and they have their own wisdom, ultimately. There's nobody that's, we follow our teacher because he's broke through and help us. But ultimately, he has to be patient and show us how to do it.
This question's from China. Asks, Amitofo, may I ask Dharma Master Lai, what is the essence of the 4 boundless hearts? Kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. How to understand the 4 hearts correctly? How do we master it in our daily life? Thank you, Dharma Master.
Well, we've been talking about that anyway. Buddhism's a practice. That's foremost. It's different than most other traditions and religions. Buddhism, first and foremost, is a practice. So that's what you do. Every day is a practice. You practice the Buddha Dharma. Even if you're working in the regular world, you can still make that a practice. You practice your mindfulness. You practice the precepts as best you can. You practice all those things, and your mind will grow into those things. Those 4 matters will manifest. It's just, you practice it. Every day you practice the precept. Every day you practice recitation. You just do it, just like you go to the gym to work out. You don't worry about, I'm not getting anywhere. What do you mean you're not getting anywhere? You're a Buddha. You're already a Buddha. You're just not woken up to the fact. That's all. So have some patience with yourself. But just work on it. When the time's right, when you really want to wake up, you're going to wake up.
Somebody sent me a message here. It says, Dharma Master Lai, I heard you ran away from Gold Mountain once and then returned after receiving a call from the monastery. What made you decide to return to the monastery? Amitofo.
I ran away from the monastery more than once. But so my because every time I try to run away, I just realize, what am I running away from? My Buddha nature is sitting right there on my shoulder wherever I run. So why am I running? What are you running from? There's nothing to run away from. So I come back again, Shufu would just laugh. He said, oh, you come back, because he knows my situation. He knows that I have this. He knows that I know this, and he says, and he knows that I keep trying to run away from it, and he thinks it's pretty funny. So he called me, go away. And then later on, he named me Heng Lai, constantly returning.
So for those who don't know Chinese, Hui Lai is the phrase, and that means coming back.
Yeah. Back when I first met Shifu, for the very first time, Sherpa says, "Oh, you finally got here."
Okay, this person asked about vegetarianism, and he says, how does vegetarian help our physical health and our bodies and our cultivation?
Well, you got to realize in Buddhism, we don't become vegetarians so we can become healthy. We can become vegetarians so we can be compassionate to living beings, so we don't eat their flesh. We don't cause them suffering. We don't cause the meat of a cow. We don't cause the cow to be killed for us. We don't cause the life of a pig to be slaughtered for us. And so we eat vegetables. And it's just a side effect that they happen to be healthy or not, depending on what kind of vegetables you're eating. But it's really not the main point of becoming a vegetarian. The main point of becoming a vegetarian in Buddhism is to be compassionate to living beings.
Okay, another question. Dharma Master Lai, can someone meditate and reach a state without sitting in a lotus position due to physical limitations? I'm guessing when she says state here, she probably means kind of awakening. Can you meditate without sitting in a full lotus position?
Well, if you have some physical deformity where you can't do it, yes, you can. It's possible. It's harder. It's not easier, but it can be done. The master always, if you're capable, the master always says, always sit in the lotus. And when we did the Chan sessions, our legs start hurting and we start crying like little kids. We can't take it. Wah, 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 because it hurts. We'll go. You know, the reason why you have so much pain in your legs is because you have so much false thinking. But he says that try to stay the full lotus as long as you possibly can. And at the moment you think you can't do it anymore, count to 10. And then you can put your leg down. So he really encouraged us to sit in the full lotus because it balances you and gets your energy, your chi ready. It just gets you really focused so that you can work on your meditation topic properly.
Another follow-up question is, can sutra translation and writing be a form of practice?
Yes, that's part of the teaching school. It's a form of practice. It's all part of the practice, yes. In fact, Shirpa used to encourage us to write down the sutras because that way you won't fall asleep. And I used to write down the Shirangama and on the commentary so that that way I could be focused on it and not fall asleep, because I always fall asleep. I cannot go into a classroom and listen to somebody teaching a class. I'll immediately go to sleep. So I'm probably the very worst student there is. So I can't learn that way. That's why I had to stand up during Shifu's lectures. Otherwise I just would crash. So Shifu was very compassionate and very patient with me.
Dharma Master Lai, did you encounter many obstacles when you planned to leave home, especially from your own parents and family? How did you respond?
Well, I was already in my 20s, you know. I left home officially in 75 as a Shami. So what is that? I was born in 46. Well, how old was I? 30? I can't remember. I have to do the math. I was born in 46. So
30, yeah, 30, 46 to 76. Or you left home before that, right? 75?
Yeah, I was already independent. I don't need my parents.
Very American.
As a little kid as like a teenager or something. So, but my mother, she just didn't know what to think. My father, actually, my father respected the master quite a bit because he wasn't involved with Asian religions or anything, but he was a Marine in World War II. But before that, he was in college, and I believe it was in San Diego, and there was a Swami from India who had some Guanchi, who had some Shinto, and he came to give a lecture in an auditorium, and he told me about this, and he was telling him about cultivation, basically. He was talking about how to cultivate and how your mind, he's basically speaking Buddha Dharma. And he said, I can show you what I mean. And he opened up his arms, and through the windows, hundreds of birds flew in to the auditorium and landed on him. He says, it was very impressive. So my father knew there was something to do. He knew that Shifu had some kind of Shinto because of that experience in the past he had with that Swami in his college. And he knew that the master was special. He didn't know how, neither did most of us, but he did know that there was something special about him. So he kind of had a respect for the master.
Would you be willing just to say a little bit about what made Master Hua special in terms of just your experience?
What do you mean?
Just, you said that Master Hua was special. I was just wondering if you were to elaborate on that, what you felt made Master Hua special.
Well, to me, you mean?
Yeah, to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had all kinds of experiences with Shifu, so it would take another few days to talk about that. But yeah, I learned that he definitely was special. I knew he was special when I met him. I didn't know how special, but I knew there was something special about him from the first day I met him.
You want to share one story about something in that realm?
Well, I mean, it just goes on and on, but because I had this kind of experience at sea when I was a sailor, and my mind stopped and my thoughts stopped, and it was a really wonderful experience. And I wanted to find somebody to help me understand what that was all about, because I knew Westerners, like psychologists and people like that, and religious like priests and stuff. They wouldn't be able to help me. I knew they wouldn't understand what I went through. So I needed to find somebody that can explain that. So I started reading books about enlightened people like Swamis and the Buddhists, like Hanshan. I read Gary Snyder's. He was an American poet, he still is, who wrote poems. He was in a Buddhist monastery, I believe in Japan of all places, but he learned about Hanshan, Shirda, and Fangan, who were enlightened sages in China. And the way, and Hanshan used to write these poems, Dualians, these poems on rocks and trees and buildings. And he translated the poems, and when I read those books, I knew that this is what I'm after. I need to find somebody like a Buddhist master who had that Hanshan characteristic about him, because those poems really hit home for me, because he was talking directly to my heart. I understood what he was getting at. And so that's kind of what drove me to want to meet the master, I guess, because I didn't know anything about Buddhism. I didn't know even the most fundamental things.
Okay. Somebody asked about Snow Mountain Monastery. Says the summer is coming. Will Dharma Master have any Chan sessions at Snow Mountain Monastery? Would it be possible to practice Chan with Dharma Master Lai? It says here, you're certified by Shifu, even though the sessions can probably have a limit of COVID.
I'm not certified by Shifu. But yes, we do definitely want to start up again, but we have to wait for people to get their vaccinations. So what we'll probably do is, I don't think we're going to be in time to do our usual 4th of July thing, but maybe Labor Day, which is the first week in September, we might be able to do a Chan session. But we'll see how it goes with everybody's vaccinations, how many people can get vaccinated, because more and more young people can get vaccinated now, and then that would be good. And then all we have to do is we can have a session, and you just show your vaccination card when you come, then you can join the session. And they're not real big up here in Snow Mountain. It's not like Wanfachung. We have maybe 40, 50 people at most during the day. And at night, maybe a dozen or two people stay on. But you're still welcome. if we have it. We have a web page, and we'll try to update the web page when we see that there's enough vaccination out there for everybody.
Any chance Fasher can host a fasting session when things start to open up again?
We don't have fasting sessions. They're not sessions. Fasting is a ascetic practice, and it can be done by everybody can fast for a few days relatively safely. You don't want to fast more than 10 days without some sort of guidance. And I wouldn't dare to be somebody who could guide people in doing that. You need a real sage to do that because it can be very dangerous otherwise. So the master used to tell us people can fast up to 10 days without any special preparation. And we don't have sessions like that though. I mean, it's an individual ascetic practice. If you want to partake in it, you just do it. Don't make a big deal out of it. He says the big thing is don't drink too much water. He used to keep us to 1 glass of water a day, period, no more than that. Otherwise, it can be very non-beneficial. It can go right to your legs. So he used to tell us don't ever drink more than 1 glass of water a day. But people who want to fast, that's fine to fast for a few days. Just don't go past 10 days.
Okay. Amitabha Life Usher, you mentioned you practice Chan. I was wondering whether you have any good advice for lay people on how to reduce or control our false thoughts. Obviously, we are not able to have no thoughts at all. Amitabha.
Well, the thing is, the problem is we can't control our thoughts. Everybody thinks you can control them, but actually your thoughts like monkeys jumping all over the place. And you got to be kind of sneaky when you're doing this. When you do Chan, Shifu used to teach us, when you do Chan, basically the proper term in Buddhism for Chan is investigate Chan. You don't just sit Chan, you investigate Chan. What does that mean? You're investigating who you are. That's why one of the most famous or the most common meditation topic when you're doing meditation, when you're doing Chan, is who. And somebody will just recite it. They think that's going to have some effect. But actually, it's a complete waste of time. You just sit there going, who. That's no meaning at all. Won't do any good. You're supposed to investigate who's asking the question who. You're supposed to be like a detective. Shifu used to always tell us, be like a detective and go after this who person. Who's asking that question? And if you're really focused on that, then you're getting some results in Chan. You're not supposed to just sit there with a dull look on your face and try to empty your brain because it ain't going to happen. Your mind is going to jump around no matter what. It may slow down a little bit, but it's still going to jump around. So put it to work. Make it work on a meditation. You can start with who. There's other ones common. And basically, what do you mean by who? It means, who am I? Who's asking the question who? It is not an intellectual question. It's a question that you deep down need to solve. And when you do, your brain's going to kind of short circuit, so to speak. It'll just kind of freeze. That's probably not the best word. It just kind of goes in suspended animation for a second. And you can actually truly feel and taste your true nature at that time. Your mind stops and the whole world. Read Shulau's poem when he woke up. It's just that way. And there's many other poems by of sages in the past who have kaiwu, and they immediately do a poem, and it's totally spontaneous and real. And they're just expressing joy, the joy of leaving filth. What is the filth? The filth is our thinking.
Okay. Here another question is, Amitabha Dharma Master Lai, can you give us some advice on chanting or reciting mantras? I have been reciting for a while now, but my mind keeps wandering off even though the words are coming out of my mouth. Can you teach us how to stay focused and concentrated? Thank you.
Yeah, that's always tough. I always go by the oxen pictures. Take the picture of a water buffalo. And there's a small child leading the water buffalo with a rope. And that has a the water buffalo represents your uncontrolled false thinking. And the rope and the little boy, the little sheep herder, little cow herder, he's the person trying to cultivate. And what happens is the big heavy ox, who's much stronger than the little boy, occasionally sees a nice big clump of green grass and goes wandering off the path to get to the grass, dragging the little boy after him. So the little boy has to pull on the rope, which is connected to the nose of the big ox, to get it to come back to the path. And that's kind of how we have to do it. You have to have patience with yourself. Yes, your mind's going to run away from time to time. Just take a note and say, oh, I was off and running. Okay, back to business. Just take the rope and pull your nose back onto the path again. Have patience. That's where we learn patience. And after a while, you'll get better at being able to stay focused. Don't beat yourself up too bad about it. Just say, oh, I'm off and running again. Let's bring it back. Find yourself lost in thought. Say, oh, my oxen ran off into the field. I got to bring him back to the path. That's the way you do it. You just have to have a lot of patience. Build up your patience strength. That's why it's called practice, cultivation practice.
This is the last question. Says Life Asher, when there are sessions at CTB, lay people have a chance to put up highways. Would you please talk a little bit about how highways help eradicate karma with our debtors? Amitabha.
I don't know about debtors, but
Debtors are like our karmic debtors. Let's say we were to put up, I'm assuming when you put up because let's maybe just ask, when you put up a highway for yourself, how does that help? And let's say you were to put up a highway for our karmic debtors, how does that help?
That's a funny question. I don't know how to, my understanding of highways is it's not, you don't put highways up for yourself. I never heard of that before. I guess maybe somebody does. Almost always people put highways up for their relatives, almost invariably. And why? Because you want to help them. You don't know where they are. Are they in the heavens? Are they in the hells? Are they reborn? Are they okay? So you put a highway up for them, and then you recite for them and transfer all the merit to them. That's what you're supposed to be doing anyway. That's what I always do. I never heard of putting a highway up for yourself. That's pretty, yeah, put a highway up for me. You put it up for your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, or somebody else like that, or you want it. And then you recite and you tell the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, please, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all the work I'm doing today, just give it to my mother, or give it to my father, or give it to my sister or brother, or whoever, and transfer it to them. And highway it's just a representation of that, really. It's just to keep you focused on that. It gives you some tangible thing to put up so that you kind of remind you to do that. It by itself, it has no special magic just sitting there, but it's just a piece of paper usually. But or maybe it's a piece of wood, or maybe it's a carving or something, I don't know. It's usually, when we do our usual things, when we have our sessions, we burn all the highways at the end. And that helps your relatives go off to rebirth. It helps them karmically. You want to help your relatives. It's basically, you just want to help your relatives. You want to make sure they're okay. You may not know where they are, but you still want them to be okay and have a good rebirth and eventually become Buddha. Ultimately, you want them to be Buddhas. That's what you really want. You want them to become Buddhas. What did the Buddha himself do when his mother died? He went up to the heavens where she was and taught her Dharma. He crossed her over to become a Buddha. That's his number one thought, to thank her for giving him birth. He did that to show us how to be filial to our parents. It was basically, he's putting on that whole thing for us to show us how to do it, to save our, to repay the kindness of your parents. That's the most profound way you can ever repay your kindness of your parents, is to cross them over to become Buddhas.
Okay, so Amitofo. I think we're at time. So maybe we do the dedication of merit.
Okay.
Appreciate everyone who joined in. So we'll put the
I,
dedication
I want to make
Oh,
a couple announcements.
yeah.
Okay, so so the first announcement is next week, next Sunday, we are going to have girls' schools principal and the students going to share. Student will share their reflection experience in school, and the principal will introduce us the girls' school. So this is going to be next Sunday, and same link for Zoom and YouTube link. We have to give that to people later. Then a week after is going to be DRBU President, Dr. Susan Rams. She's going to introduce the DRBU to us. Okay. Again, the same Zoom link, and we'll provide the YouTube link later. So that's pretty much I have. So appreciate Thomas Lai answered so many questions for us and very useful. And so, and also Thomas Jing Chuan for facilitate this session, and all the volunteers who work behind the scenes so that this session can go on smoothly. Okay, so we'll dedicate merit and Jing Chuan, so you want to lead?
Okay. So I think the text is on the screen, so we can follow along. Should we do English or Chinese, like Yong Fazhi?
Either way,
Either way.
probably English if
Yeah,
you
English.
comfortable.
May the merit from this practice adorn all the Buddha's lands, repay their kindness from above, and rescue those in paths below. May all who see or hear of this resolve upon awakening, and when this body meets its end, be born together in the land of bliss. 3 vows. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Pay our respects to Dharma Master Lai. Oh,
Ibai, Omitobo,
Amitabha.
Omitobo. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wish everyone good evening.
Evening.
And for those who are doing the 10,000 Buddha's repentance, wish you a good session. Amitofo.
Amitabha, everyone.